All right, on the docket, we have a bunch tonight, per usual. We're going to talk about Alex Smith, Jordan Reed, some of the cooler sounding football names in the draft based on their name alone, and some more draft stuff because we are only 8 days away. And by the time you're listening to this, maybe less than a week. So we will kick right off into Alex Smith's retirement. He came back for a year, presumably to prove something to himself, which is a fabulous story. I'm going to start with Jason tonight because he arguably has the most experience watching Alex Smith because he is a Broncos enthusiast and Smith played in Kansas City for quite some time. So, what is your take on the Alex Smith retirement, good sir?
Hey, first thought was a kind of shock, actually. It seems like every one of these topics relates to the Broncos somehow or another. So then I constantly have to talk about them. But yeah, he was rumored to be a fail-safe to Denver. I didn't lose you, did I?
Nope.
Okay, good. I thought I was having some connection issues, but yeah, rumored to be a fail-safe going into Denver. Mentor Drew Lock, kind of bridge. So he retires. That takes another quarterback off the docket for Denver. Yeah. Here we sit again. It was just Darnold a few weeks ago.
Yeah, two gone.
But I had the opportunity to watch him several times, and God, there were some good years there where it seemed like he really got out of the gates quick. Remember, what was it, like 3 years ago? Was it 3 or 4 years ago where he came out firing, taking the ball downfield 20, 30 yards a pop, and everybody was like, God, is this the same Alex Smith? Really letting it rip. But I was shocked. I figured he'd want to come back somewhere, and I heard though that he wanted to be a starter somewhere.
Okay.
He wasn't ready to be a backup, and I don't know if that how true that is, but if that was the case, I can see him not really having too many bidders.
Yeah, I think
with the injury, and
I think the only spot, unless I'm missing one, Wesley, that he could be the starter would be the Bears right now. I think every team. I'm not saying that because they're on my poop list eternally. That's the only team that I could think would be an upgrade would be the Bears. I mean, every other team at least has a plan and come the draft here. So yeah, what about Alex Smith? What was your reaction, Mr. Johnson?
Well, I mean, the Bears are giving out 15 mil to backup quarterbacks, masquerading as starters. So, that very well could have been a spot for him. The Alex Smith news was surprising. To echo what Jason said, I thought he could have wound up in a backup role or a mentorship role. I know he went down to Jacksonville and spoke with Urban Meyer, his old college coach at Fresno State, to see if it was Fresno State or Utah, I forget. But anyways, to see if that could be a potential marriage. But after thinking about it for some time, he decided to hang up the cleats, and here we are.
Yeah, I now that we know what we do about he broke his leg and he came back and then it was only for a year and he's gone. I think it was a quintessential type of fairy tale. And I think I mentioned this to one of our franchise tag writers that now looking back in retrospect, I think he had what Rocky Balboa said in the 2006 movie, Stuff in the Basement. He just had to prove to himself that he could get back on the field, and he did. And kind of guided Washington to the postseason in a roundabout way. But in retrospect, yeah, he probably would have jumped at a starting opportunity. But I think as a man, as a human, as a football player, an athlete, all of that stuff, I think he just wanted to show his wife and kids and himself that I can do this. And I'll be damned, he did. I echo the same thoughts as Jason with the Chiefs. I'd watch those games and I'd be like, man, this dude is quite good. Like, he doesn't take a lot of risks, but he does just enough. And it always felt like that franchise was so snake bitten until Mahomes got there that he was just part along with it. But I always foresaw him as a dude that could slide into that Nick Foles or Joe Flacco Super Bowl conversation. And one of those years he could win it because he is that good and just needs the cast around him, just like Foles and Flacco had. So Yeah, he'll be missed. First overall pick from the 2005 NFL draft. Jordan Reed also retired, and he was a tight end that spent most of the time in Washington. And his is an injury kind of casualty, but he was dynamic. I know him most notably from all of my Kirk Cousins statistical quasi research. He was always popping up there, and sometimes when I'd say, Cousins had this receiving core in Washington, people were quick to say, "Yep, but he had Jordan Reed too." So, what is your pulse on Jordan Reed's retirement, Wes?
Yeah, as you mentioned, dynamic tight end. He kind of helped redefine what teams look for at the position now. Quick, um, mismatch for whoever matched up to him, be it a safety or a linebacker. He was either burning the linebacker or just overpowering the safety. Um, he had a lot of good years in Washington with Cousins, but the concussions, derailed his career, and ultimately he made the decision to hopefully have long-term health.
Yeah, Jason, what about Jordan Reed?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have too much of an intense thought process, along those lines. I don't know a whole lot about the guy. You guys can help me out here. How many Pro Bowls did he make?
I don't think any. Wes, you'll have to spot check that.
Yeah.
I think he was just he was lauded for his athleticism and potential, and because of the injuries, he never blossomed to what he was thought to be coming out of the draft. So it's more of a what could have been, like we sometimes see.
He was pretty highly coveted coming out.
Yeah, he's kind of that hybrid, like, take the top off the defense for a tight end. And unfortunately for his sake, it caught up to him in terms of the injuries. And now at the ripe old age of 30, he's hanging them up.
Yeah, and I do, sorry to go back a little bit, but I do want to back up to Alex Smith just for a second.
Sure.
Let's make no mistake about it. And I've heard this a lot, with, working at home and stuff. I got sports TV on all day. Alex Smith did not anchor that team to the NFC crown. I mean, he just didn't do that.
Yeah, fair enough.
I mean, I mean, it's a great story. It really is. I mean, it's a remarkable story, but I watched actually a few of those games last year, and I mean, let's just be honest about what we saw there. I mean,
right.
That defense got him there, and it was a great story. It made for good media talk, but he didn't look anything like he did with the Chiefs.
Yeah,
right.
That's fair. I probably overstated that for a dramatic effect. Wes, tell us about the off-season workout. So we're seeing, like, team by team, they tweet the same thing with the same logo. It looks like the exact same text, but then it's a little different. So what does that mean? They essentially are banding together like good unions do, and they're taking a stand. Some of the players, mostly like it's expected, the quarterback shows up to be a leader. So break down what all that stuff means.
Yeah, really quick. Jordan Reed had one Pro Bowl appearance, but yeah, it was a topic we were thinking about discussing last week. Didn't really have a whole ton of traction. As of yesterday, though it had gained traction. There was, I believe, 21 player representatives from different teams that have made some kind of statement, as you mentioned, on social media regarding that. Essentially, the NFL Players Association has advised their clients to not do the voluntary team workouts. It's usually voluntary team workouts, and then a couple weeks go by, and then there's the mandatory team work. The reason being is the NFLPA doesn't believe that the NFL has done enough to protect the players for potential COVID exposure. So they're saying it's an unnecessary risk to get everybody together.
Okay, so it's a solidarity thing, and rightfully so on the union part of it. And is there other developments? The jersey numbers, that's passed, or getting close to passed?
Yeah, no, that passed. So there's more flexibility in what numbers players can choose to play with. I think prior it was maybe like 20 different number combinations that you could have. Now I believe it's expanded to almost like 40 different numbers per position. So, your favorite wide receiver can have a single digit number where previously they weren't able to.
Okay, and then the caveat that I read before the show is that they have to either buy out all of their existing jerseys or they have to give notice of a year.
Right.
Okay.
That's kind of standard with the NBA as well. I know LeBron James and Anthony Davis talked about swapping numbers once Anthony Davis came over. Nike was like, hold on, we have all this money, plugged into all these LeBron James 23 jerseys. We got to make sure all these sells. And so that's why that hasn't happened yet, but similar situation, I'm guessing, for the NFL.
And I don't know that LeBron and Davis one will ever actually happen now. They won a championship with the numbers, and it seems like it was just a teaser.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure how much that would affect the sales of them anyway, really. I mean, you never know, I guess. But my question is why was it for the longest time that they weren't allowed to have those numbers? Is there any real reason?
I think it's just tradition. As long as I can remember.
No fun league.
I remember how cool it was when
Yeah.
Keyshawn could wear 19, and
Right.
I'm thinking like, wow, like for no good reason, I thought that was badass, and
almost as badass as him being drafted number 1 overall.
Yeah. So now that we see these players that might switch back to their college number, receivers and running backs, it's a single digit. Now, as somewhat mature older men, we're like, what? Okay, so what's the big deal with that? Think back to how cool we thought it was when receivers could get into the teens, and that's the excitement that I think the players themselves and then the men and women that are significantly younger than us are buying into. And I'll be right along with them. I've got playing around coin Vikings money to spend, so I'll get the jerseys, even though I'll double up on them. And it'll be interesting to see which ones actually do it. Probably the younger ones and whatnot.
I think Keyshawn was a badass, though.
I think the other news before we hop on to the next topic was that the oft rumored, onside kick rule was tabled again. So We're not going to go to 4th and 15. That would just be dreadful going up against Mahomes, and that's all he has to get is a 4th and 15. So now they reduced the box, so to speak, that it's like 9 dudes can be up to go recover a kick. Is that it? I
didn't catch that portion, but
yeah, I think
that would make sense.
Yeah, I think they twisted it so that it's a little bit. It's a 1-year experiment. Whatever the number was, 10 guys going to recover the ball. I think it's reduced by 1 to 9. So it's supposed to make it a little bit more feasible because let's face it, the onside kick has just been a joke. I mean,
right.
An utter joke.
Right.
My wife started watching football in 2015 when I met her, and she's so jaded on onside kicks. She'll be like, why do they do these? This is so stupid. And I'm like, well, 10 years ago, they used to recover them. And she just doesn't believe me.
Yeah, and every time you see your team do it, you still have a little hope.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, the only one I can remember is that Cowboys one from last year where they blew it, or Falcons blew it.
Yeah, that's the one where they like backed away from it, didn't it?
Yeah. Like just
so weird.
Yeah, just a mental error of stratospheric proportions where they're like, well, we can't touch it, so.
Yeah.
Head should have rolled.
Heads did. I mean, they got lambasted in the media. What was the success rate on an onside kick? I think it was a little bit better back when they were allowed to line up. What was it, 5 to 10 yards deep and then get that running start?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I think it was, they recovered. They had a little bit more success doing it that way, but
yeah. Oh yeah. It was, I would venture to say that your team would get an onside kick about once every 2 years, like, unless you were just incompetent. But now it's like, it's not even worth it, like at all.
Right.
So I'm hoping whatever they try is a little bit different, because when I hear 4th and 15, I don't think about the positive side of it. I think of like, oh, well, that's a new way to screw the Vikings. That'll be the one that gets us in the NFC
4th and
championship.
15, he's gonna get it.
Yeah. So,
4th and 15, he's getting it.
yeah, and I see the numbers, and I of course have to buy into them that it is statistically equivalent to the old days of getting an onside kick to converting a 4th and 15. But if you're cynical, you're thinking, oh, okay, I already know how this story ends. It's gonna be, you're gonna be balls deep in the NFC Championship, and like Rodgers has to get a 4th and 15. There's gonna be like a tip ball caught by Devontae Adams. Yeah.
Guarantee.
So I never think about how it could benefit, just the nasty stuff. So.
It's just all the things that it's going to do to affect your team negatively.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
All right. The next topic is a strange one, and I requested this be on the docket. It's the most fascinating, the coolest sounding draft names, versus the ones that are bleh. And, nothing wrong at all whatsoever with these players that I'm about to make fun of. Like last year, for instance, before they even went to their respective teams, I made fun of the names Lloyd Cushenberry, because it sounds like a bookworm, and then Jeff Gladney, because Gladney doesn't sound like a big bruising football name. It just sounds like some like 30-year-old that's glad about stuff. So on the inverse,
we each got one of our. We got.
And then
on our teams too.
Yeah, Cushenberry went to the Broncos and Gladney went to the Vikings. So I have a feeling that whatever lame names we come up with are gonna come to some of our teams. So the first two cool ones that, like, if you hear their name, you're like, that's a sweet sounding name. I have our Creed Humphrey, and that's because of my fascination with Apollo Creed from the Rocky film that I mentioned earlier. And the cat that you can probably hear meowing, his name is Apollo Creed. That's one of my cats' names. So that one inspires what I think is just a bedrock of badass. And then this one I couldn't leave off the list is Carlos Basham. There was a wrestling tag team 10, 15, 20 years ago named the Bashams, and it just fit because it was a wrestling thing. But this guy's an edge rusher, so in theory, he'll bash them.
And his nickname is Boogie.
Is it?
Carlos Boogie Basham.
I didn't know that, so that's even better. That has solidified my stance.
That is better, man. That is sweet.
Boogie Basham. And then the two lame ones that I have, and like I said, this is just me being overly critical, is Greg Newsome. That sounds like my neighbor, like Greg Newsome lives next door, or like, the manager, of marketing, go talk to Mr. Newsome. And the other one I have is Pat Fryermuth. That sounds like a relief pitcher on the Orioles or something, doesn't it? Like Fryermuth's coming out of the bullpen, and it doesn't invoke fear. I can guarantee you this guy wore glasses at some point in his life. There's no fear whatsoever. So, but with that said, I bet you Fryermuth goes to the Broncos and Newsome goes to the Vikings, and then we'll be forced to forget this conversation. So, Jason, give me a couple of your badass names and a couple ones that make you laugh.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think Micah Parsons is pretty badass. I think he's that name just kind of sticks out. And another one is a guy that I mentioned last week, and that's Alex Leatherwood. I mean, I think Alex Leatherwood, and I picture that guy standing next to Darnold when he beat that dude's ass.
Yeah. Oh, that's perfect.
I haven't dug too deep of a dive in like I did last year, but let me have a look at some more. Go ahead, Wes.
Yeah, go look at some of the garbage ones and see if you can come up with those. Wes, I know you've got a list.
Patty
Wes,
Fisher.
you gave me a list that was longer than like the first round of the draft class. So
I did a little homework, and I actually found an article somebody had wrote about.
No way.
Yeah.
It wasn't me under a pen name or something?
No.
Somebody wrote about this?
Yes.
Oh man.
That's how I found out about Boogie Basham too. There are some good ones though. Wap Philor, wide receiver. Hamilcar Rashid Jr., an edge rusher. Rashad Wild Goose Jr., a defensive back.
Patty Fisher.
Patty Fisher. Yeah. Another one. Tough Borland. I mean, that's a pretty good football name.
Is that just like Al Borland spelling?
Yeah. Yeah.
We'll take it.
I think Mac Jones is a pretty badass name.
Mac Jones works. One that I don't like is Chris Evans. I mean,
Is that really straight up his name?
it's a running back named Chris Evans.
Okay.
Chris Evans is the wide
America.
receiver coach.
Oh,
And then you had DiCaprio Boodle
DiCaprio Boodle, a defensive back.
and then Divine Diablo. Yeah, that sounds
Some good
like
ones.
that sounds like a porn star.
Yeah.
And that's not an insult.
No.
No, that's Divine Diablo.
Did you find any other head scratchers, Bolin?
I'm just had to look at. I just Jesus. Oh man, what was that guy? Rashad Wild Goose.
Yeah.
God, these are real names.
Real
Yeah.
names.
I
It's
think
wonderful.
now that I looked at so Wes took this exercise to heart and went through undrafted class too. So I think that's where Patty Fisher, that one's definitely the winner.
Yeah.
That's kind of like who was it? For some reason, 6 years ago, the Spurs decided that Patrick Mills was going to be called Patty Mills. And I wondered why he would accept that because it went from Patrick Strong, Irish sounding name Patrick Mills. And then one game on a Sunday, they're like Patty Mills for 3. And I'm like, oh, now we're calling him Patty? It sounds like his aunt. So, yeah.
Oh boy.
Not a good changeover for him. So, all right, let's morph into draft stuff before I think the end of our mini mock. There's some core themes we need to talk about. Wes, you wanted to know, and I apologize if I'm putting words in your mouth. You wanted to know who will the surprise pick be inside the top 10 if it's not Mac Jones?
Yeah.
And then what is your criteria? Is it would Quiddy pay in the top 10? That would be a surprise?
I would think so.
Okay.
Just based on, overall where players are getting mocked. Or...
Okay. So which in the top 10, since the Raiders aren't there, which team do we think is capable of doing something dumb? The Giants? Detroit. Who has the reputation for doing something silly in a draft? Because that's where you got to start.
Right. I would say probably Detroit. They're at what, number 9?
Okay.
Well, then Atlanta
I'm gonna make this is completely off the hip, and I haven't thought about this. I will say the one that will make us go what, and this is a reach. This will be the Lions stretch for Rashad Bateman that early. There are a lot of draft heads that say he's going to be a surefire star, and we don't know enough about Lions management to know if they've become sane or if it's going to be Raiders-esque. So that's that one that comes to mind because Bateman shouldn't really go until about 18, 19, 20 at the highest. So I'll say Rashad Bateman to the Lions.
That's good. Jason, what about you?
Anything odd?
I don't actually this year. I think that the Falcons stand pat.
Okay.
I don't think that they'll trade. I know that right now that they expect to, but I think they're gonna stay where they're at and surprise some people there.
All right, Wes, you wrote the question.
I don't know how surprising that would be for most. I guess I don't know if that's.
Well, it's easy to think right now, and we've studied it for so long, 3 months or whatever, that there's going to be something crazy. And I still believe that there will be something that's like, whoa. But there's always a chance that it goes business as usual. It's been a while since we've had a business as usual. Daniel Jones screwed everything up in 2019, and the Raiders usually do something bizarre. And the Giants will be there. And it's not to say Gettleman is silly, because Jones will have a make or break year to determine if he was worth that pick. But right now, the usual suspects aren't inside the top 10. That basically is who we have on Daryl 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
who admitted that, his team does strange stuff. So what do you think it is, Wes?
Well, the Cowboys pick at number 10. Um, and Jerry Jones is pretty unpredictable. I could see them eschewing need. A need for them is a defensive back, I would say, especially
Yep.
with last year's first rounder, Trayvon Diggs in legal trouble potentially, and then I think another defensive back is in legal trouble as well. Um, so I could see them going for some flashy offensive weapon again. And
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll just stockpile. Like if
Yeah.
they do a receiver, I'm gonna just walk out of Cleveland, walk out of the theater there, because I did that last year. I was sitting in my bed and I was like, CeeDee Lamb, why? Just to screw the Eagles? Because I'm okay with that. But that one was bizarre. So, but if they did do that, if Pitts was there, which that one could actually be forgiven,
Right.
But if they were like Jalen Waddle, I mean, then you might as well just cut Gallup or something.
Right.
All right. So
Yeah, well, the Lions drafted receivers in the first round, top 10, 3 years in a row. Remember that back in the day when Matt Millen was
yeah, they were just like the Raiders joke about speed. It was what wide receiver the Lions going to pick. But the thing is, this year, if they do that, it'll be justified because right now it's Tyrell Williams, Khalif Raymond, and the big one or somewhat big one, Brashad Perryman. So like those three with a Mahomes probably is a formidable core, but with the Goff and the Lions, it just feels like fantasy hell.
Right.
Yeah, and that
Lions might pull the trigger on a quarterback if there's one available.
Yeah, I think I had, was it this mock? I think it was.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
I went Lance there, because then I'll be forced to dislike him.
Oh, that's right, you did.
Yep.
Yeah.
But then again, it all depends on their perception of their wide receiving core. Because I think with a offense that is renowned for lighting up the scoreboard, then maybe Perryman, Tyrell, Khalif Raymond, Geronimo Allison, maybe, and Hawkinson, that's doable. But if it's the Lions, you're like, oh, they need some receivers. It just depends on their reputation or their scheme.
Yeah.
All right. And then I think your other thing we wanted to get on record is was about the
who trades back into the end of the first round and which team trades out.
Okay.
So end of the first round, you typically see if quarterback's available, you see a team move up or a potential, need position that's falling. That way the team gets the player for the extra 5th year option.
Yeah. I don't know if there's any quarterbacks that are I've seen this Davis Mills talk. Somebody on Twitter asked me if I thought that the Bears would go with Davis Mills in the first round, and I thought he was just trolling me. And then there's some chatter out there that he's climbed. It can't be real.
No, there is. There's chatter in Bronco country about it too.
In first round?
No, well, there's some bloggers and podcasters out there that I listen to that have them pretty unusually higher on their board than they probably should.
Okay.
But they have them ahead of I think they have him ahead of Mac Jones, to be honest.
Wow.
Yeah, no, that one, I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
He's going to be a third round, and then we're going to laugh at how he was supposed to go in the first round. I'm sure, I bet you that was generated from his agent or college or something. There's just no way he's going to go in the first round. If he goes to the Bears, I'll rejoice. Just be a waste.
Well, you can learn behind Dalton.
So I don't know that unless Mac Jones slides all the way down, I don't know if a team trades back in. I just don't think there is that caliber of like Lamar Jackson where fringe late first, second. But I would look at the movers and shakers of years past with trades. Usually the Patriots like to do something. And then even though it's not in the late round, I will predict for your Broncos formally, Jason, that they will trade back. That's my prediction. I think Peyton is just learning the lay of the land. So any hype that we might see about him wanting to trade up, if he's a disciple of Rick Spielman, that's not going to happen. That's not how Spielman does things. So I think the Broncos will trade back. I do think the Vikings will trade back. I've said that many times in writing and on various airwaves. Who else? The Falcons one, I just can't decide on. And then in terms of trading up, you can't really trade up for too many quarterbacks unless you're the Patriots that wants to. The Patriots one makes sense because if they're committing to Newton as the starter, then it's going to make a lot more sense if they've got Mac Jones waiting or Lance waiting right behind him, because it seems weird to re-up with Newton to me.
Yeah, I said that in the last pod. I can't make sense out of that unless they, and they're just right there in the mid-teens, not quite there to be able to grab one of those guys. So I could see them trading up for sure.
Yeah.
What's Belichick's? What is his draft strategy been recently? I guess I haven't really paid a whole heck of a lot of attention to what he likes to do, but he always seems to come out reasonably good.
He's got a reputation that's linked to his aura of greatness that people just think he's this absolute brilliant drafter, but he's not. Right. Like he hits on some just like everybody else does, but his niche is finding players that weren't drafted at all or cultivating players a couple years after who you've never heard of. He never, in my opinion, ever hits gold, like other general managers do, but you can't slander him because he's got, more rings than the Lord.
They spent 2 third-round draft picks last year on tight ends and have quickly moved on from that and decided to spend a boatload in free agency on 2 tight ends instead.
Yeah, no, he's like he when you start thinking about the brilliant football minds or quasi general managers in his case, he always is in there. But in terms of drafting, he's really not. He's just great at everything else. And then he had Brady attached to his hip for so long. The last thing on this particular little segment you had, Wes, was besides quarterback, which position do we see fly off the board in round 1? I will be astonished if you guys don't agree with this. Wide receiver. That's the only other position that I see will be at a premium. And that would mean that like Rondell Moore goes in the first round, that Tony, I can't remember his first name, a run on those guys towards the end of the first round where good teams are trying to get a little bit better with an explosive wide receiver. Other than that, this edge class in the first round alone, is not that great. It gets better as it gets deeper. Offensive line is pretty much on brand for what it usually is. We already know all about the quarterbacks, like you said. The tight end is Pitts. And then I just don't foresee a rush on a certain position, but wide receiver could really do the trick if it happens at all.
Yeah, I can see that. I also could see offensive tackle. There's a couple players that like AVT that profile as both a tackle and a guard. I'm kind of lumping him into that, but protection was at a premium. In the Super Bowl, you saw Mahomes running for his life, so
I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
I could definitely see a lot of these teams trying to invest early on these offensive linemen.
Depending what you call a run, I mean, you're going to see some, there's potential chance you see 4 cornerbacks come off too.
Yeah.
That's, and I think a team could potentially trade back up into the first, kind of going off the last question that we asked to grab Farley if he falls that far.
That'll probably be the Vikings too. They've got a thing for corners, and trading to get them is their MO. All right, let's finish the show out with our mock draft remainder. Where did we stop? We got all the way to
we're on the Jets.
Okay. And what number are they? Do you have that handy?
They are number is it 23?
Okay. All right. So they need a edge, a defensive back, offensive lineman. We think they already got their quarterback in the night. They did. So what do you got for them there?
I will go with Tevin Jenkins, offensive lineman.
Okay. He's a dude that I've seen in the second round, so he must have been climbing as of late. All right, so I have the Steelers. This one, I'm just going to adhere to stereotypes. They're going to select some defensive player. He's going to be awesome. So that'll be Zaven Collins, and they don't need a safety, but it doesn't usually matter. They and the Bears will pick a defensive player usually in drafts, and before you know it, that guy's a stud, and just roll your eyes to the far back of your head.
Yeah.
That puts Jason on the clock with the Jaguars, who need a safety, a tight end, and a tackle to protect Trevor Lawrence.
Boy.
Top safety on the board is.
Yeah, he's there. That Trevin Moring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Gosh, and I mean, you might as well mock him there. I'm not too terribly familiar with the guys as they get a little closer to the end of the first.
No, that one.
Did I mock Did I mock Leatherwood last week?
I think you just mentioned him.
No, he's on the board.
Yeah, he's on the board.
Is he on the board?
Yeah, you mentioned how his stock was higher, and then now it's second round, but it floats up to the bottom. So
yeah,
you'd probably be able to get him.
I'd roll with, I mean, I don't know if it all depends on where the I'd go with that safety. I'd go with the safety.
Yeah, and the Jets need best player available, or excuse me, the Jaguars need best player available all over the place. So that one does add up.
That would be a home run first round for them.
Yeah. All right, and that puts you with the am I going to get stuck with? No, I thought I was going to get the Packers. It just dawned on me that I've already had the Lions and Bears. All right, oh my. All right, so you have the Browns, Wes?
Cleveland Browns. They need defensive interior and linebacker. I will stick with defensive interior since they cut Sheldon Richardson, and we will go with Christian Barmore.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, that's a dude that on talent should probably be in the top 20, but three technique defensive tackle certainly isn't something to neglect, but most teams, based on the way that they've got rid of all of their veterans, seem to be pretty set or just not putting as much emphasis as some might like. But hey, that's the position Aaron Donald plays, so we know it's a difference maker, and Barmore would indeed be the first three tech off the board in our mini mock draft. That puts me with another AFC Norther with the Ravens, and I'm tempted to do what I did with the Steelers and just pick best defensive player, but they notoriously under-surround Lamar. So that means that I can do Tony, which seems like a little bit of a reach, or I'll go Rondale Moore because that feels like a pick that the Ravens would usually make. So Rondale Moore, wide receiver to the Ravens.
Nice.
Jason, you got the Saints, defensive back, wide receiver, linebacker is a need.
Yeah, I was talking to my buddy Brady today at work, and we were actually talking about Caleb Farley going to New Orleans.
Oh, okay. Well, then
he had mentioned that. He actually mentioned that he was going to mortgage his. Or actually, I put it into his head that he should just because he listed me as needs, and I'm like, well, just you should just give up the rest of your draft picks this year and next year and get Parsons, Farley, and Sewell. Guys are in business. Perfect. I mean, they did it before with Ricky Williams. I mean,
right.
3 first-round picks in this year's draft, no more until 2023.
For a running back. Oh man, how times have changed.
Did that.
Think about that. I mean, I know, like, obviously times have changed and we get it, but think about the the absolute pandemonium there would be if like a team traded 3 successive firsts for a running back.
How many people because that was, what was that, 99? Yeah. And obviously, the running backs were big then, right? You were coming off a decade where Thurman Thomas, Emmitt Smith, Barry Sanders dominated. And then you had, your Ricky Waters and Terry Allen had some good. Terrell Davis. I mean, running backs were king then.
Yep.
And obviously we look at it now and it just seems so bizarre. But were there supporters like of that trade in the Saints corner at all, or did they just get ridiculed for that?
No, there wasn't widespread, like it wasn't every single person ridiculed. It was like the hype train was like, well, geez, this has got to be Bo Jackson, a healthy version of Bo Jackson, if that's the case.
Right.
It quickly became apparent because of times have changed, the weed smoking stuff that back then that was like meth, and so it was like, well, we drafted this meth head and we gave up the future. So, I mean, it was perceived as a huge purse in ransom from the beginning, but there wasn't immediate outcry. It was like, well, this is Ditka. He won a Super Bowl at that time 15 years ago. So let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But within a year, it became apparent that, ugh. So.
And then they got rid of him a couple years after the fact. And it was this, it's crazy to think about that now, though. Yeah. He gave up their entire draft. They drafted him and didn't draft again.
Right.
That night. That's crazy.
Yeah. All right. So, Wes, that puts you with the Packers.
The Packers, they need wide receiver, defensive back, linebacker. I don't think they help Rodgers out again in the first round. We will do Joseph Osai, an edge, with plans to put him at outside linebacker.
Is that for assuming the Smith Bros are short timing, or?
Yeah, I think one of them's contract is coming up maybe next year.
Okay. All right. So that puts me with the Chiefs. And let's see. It makes too much sense that they would. Yeah, they'll probably make a wise decision. I will go.
Oh, actually, no, you got the Bills.
Oh, I was gonna say you got. It looks like you got the Bills.
Bills, defensive line, defensive back. Fair enough. You already took Barmore. I got Zaven Collins off the board. Yeah, this is when it starts to get super interesting because you're wiggling down the board. I will take that Levi character. I don't want to butcher his last name. On Muzarki.
Yeah, looks.
That's not right, good. But it's the best that a white man can do tonight. All right, so Jason, that gives you your hated Chiefs.
Yeah, and this is where Leatherwood goes.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna do that too. So
yeah. I like his, because Leatherwood can get, he's a pretty versatile lineman, and I shouldn't really know this much about a lineman, but he can play guard, he can play tackle on either side, and I don't know. I think Mahomes will make him look better than he actually is.
Yeah, he must have been at one point thought to go to Denver for you to know that this much about him.
Well, he was just at one point in time, not too long ago. From my research anyway, he was coveted almost just as much ahead of a Sewell. You heard more about Leatherwood, or at least I did from the research I did.
Yeah.
But it's hard saying not better than Sewell or anything like that, but he was talked about just as much.
Okay.
So, I don't know how somebody's stock like that can just drop so drastically unless,
yeah, it's always a fascinating lack of science. I was going to say science, but Davis Mills all of a sudden going the first round, and nothing changed about his life in the past 2 weeks. It just like somebody somehow created the steam that said, hey, he's going to go in the first round. It's like when Baker, like within the last week or two of the 2018 draft, it was like all of a sudden common knowledge he was going to be the first pick, and before that he was going to be like the 10th pick. So stuff happens, and I don't quite get it.
Yeah, I don't either.
All right, Wes, you want to finish this out for the evening?
Yeah, so Tampa, they need defensive interior. That's really their only need after re-signing all their starters from last year. They're in a position to trade back out of the first round, pick up an extra pick or two for next year's draft to restock their team. But since we're staying put, I will go with the last defensive tackle on our big board, Davion Nixon from Iowa.
Okay, so he becomes a Buccaneer, and then we wait for round 2. All right, so I will be going to the draft. My wife and I are leaving next Wednesday night, so I believe we'll bump the show up one day, Tuesday, which for listeners means early Wednesday morning or Wednesday afternoon that you can listen to this. Gentlemen, did I forget anything you want to get on air for tonight?
No, I think we got it.
Are you guys driving there, Dustin?
Yeah, we looked at airfare, and all together with our favorite thing, the fees, it would probably be about $1,200. And we're just excited to go do something. And so, just for me driving, I've never in the sober life of mine, the past 9 years, I love driving. It's just like, especially with my wife, we just sit there and chat about stuff and come up with little games. So I, especially after being somewhat locked down for these 13, 14 months, to me, facing the barrel of a 15-hour drive sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So just driving across the heartland and end up in Cleveland. So yeah, we're gonna drive, and that's the way of it.
Will you like attend it each night, or just the first night? Or
the way that it works is NFL draft is always free, and people don't know that. It usually ends up being a big party inside and out. And this year it's slimmed down. They have precautions like a vaccination, like you have to attest that you're fully vaccinated. I don't know how enforceable that is. But then you think masks, unless something changes. Fauci's supposed to have some sort of announcement this weekend about masks, so we'll see there. But it'll be slimmed down, and you go on to the NFL One Pass app, and it tells you what slots are available. So by the time I got there, the first night was already soaked up by everybody. And that worked out fine because we can at least take our time driving into Ohio. But then the day 2, I got in for, I think it was a 10-1 slot or something like that. And then I created an account for my wife and exited out of the app, and then got day 3 for her too, so we could go twice. And then unbeknownst to me, the owner of Vikings territory has connections, and he thinks he'll be able to get me a press pass. So nice. I'll have to figure out how that works with having my wife with me. I mean, ultimately I wouldn't leave her, but if they let us in as a package deal, it'll be awesome. So,
oh heck yeah, man, that'll be great. Yeah. He's going to make an announcement in terms of mass, like just for the draft, or collectively as for the nation.
Oh, Fauci. So at my daytime job, I work closely with a official from the city of Sioux Falls, and I don't know if he read on CNN or if he had it on some side of insider hint that there seems like there'll be a change to the mask recommendation this weekend, and so to the nation. So I don't know what that'll be, but I think half the country now has got at least one dose of vaccination. So this is the time when things would start to see a return to normalcy. So we'll see if the federal government agrees.
Well, would that press pass that you were talking about, what would that entail? Would that get you access to the players?
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yep. I'd be, and I have to just kind of learn on the fly. Thankfully, I don't have butterflies about that kind of stuff. I just have to go there and be like, hi, I write about the stuff, so let me talk to you. And
hey, I've talked to Moss.
Yeah,
tell him
that's actually what he put on my application. That I've interviewed Adrian Peterson, Warren Sapp, Randy Moss, Devin Hester, and so believe it or not, that means something. And his name's Joe Johnson. He owns Vikings territory and FranchiseTagged, and he's been doing this thing with Vikings territory for I think 4 or 5 years. So he's made a lot of connections.
That's awesome.
Yep. And there's always a chance that it doesn't pan out, and then I just go and be a spectator. And like I said, it'll be fun. And getting back to how we used to do stuff, just go out and have fun, eat, and spend time with your wife.
Yeah, driving is a good time. That's how we prefer to roll too.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, freaking. Hey, I had a quote tweet from Schlereth one time. Don't forget that.
And Ryan Leaf. Ryan Leaf likes your stuff.
Yeah, he follows me on Instagram. I'm pretty excited about that. I like his stuff. He's pretty inspirational for sure.
Yeah, I bet we can get him on here.
That'd be great.
Yeah,
that'd be great, man. We should do that sometime.
I think the website is far enough along that I can point to it and say, this is what we are, and we'll see if we can lure him in. Maybe even
No.
Schlereth too. Schlereth, I don't know if you ever watched Ballers, but Schlereth was awesome in Ballers.
He's so good.
Yeah,
So
he-
good, man. The other night he got into a Twitter beef with some Jets fan.
Yeah, I love that they stoop to that level sometimes. Makes me feel better about some of the stuff I get involved in on Twitter. All right, gentlemen, that's all we got. We appreciate you guys listening out there. We'll be back 2 nights before the NFL draft to talk more about the draft. Peace.
Peace.
Sound, guys.
All right, gentlemen. Tuesday will be fine for you guys.
Yeah, we'll make
Okay.
it work.
All right.
I think so. I'll have to double check, but yeah, either way, I'll let you
Double
guys know
check,
for
and
sure.
if not, we could try to pivot it to Monday. But other than that, I can't go any later.
Yep.
Otherwise, I'd turn over the duties to you guys, but it takes a while to learn how to edit and all that shit. So
Yeah.
all right, later.
Later.
Cool. See you guys.